Hello and welcome to What the F Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Amditas. Let's get to it. It's Friday, December 10th, 2021. Welcome to day 325. The Supreme Court allowed abortion providers in Texas to challenge the new state law that essentially bans abortions after roughly 6 weeks. The law, the most restrictive in the country, remains in place while abortion providers challenge it in federal court. But at the same time, the court limited which state officials could be sued by abortion providers to just 4 licensing officials who were involved in the enforcement of SB 8. Separately, the court also dismissed a challenge to the law brought by the DOJ. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said Biden was very concerned about the ruling, which is, quote, a reminder of how much these rights are at risk, end quote. Meanwhile, a federal appeals court rejected Trump's effort to stop the congressional committee investigating the Capitol Riot from obtaining his White House records from that time. A 3-judge panel at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit unanimously denied Trump's request to block the National Archives from releasing roughly 800 pages of his documents, saying Biden's decision to not invoke executive privilege over the material outweighed Trump's residual secrecy powers. The court said Congress had a uniquely vital interest in studying the events of January 6, and that Biden had made a carefully reasoned decision that the documents were in the public interest when he declined to assert executive privilege on behalf of Trump. The panel concluded, quote, on the record before us, former President Trump has provided no basis for this court to override President Biden's judgment and the agreement and accommodations worked out between the political branches over these documents, end quote. The court did, however, pause its ruling for 2 weeks so that Trump could seek a Supreme Court intervention. The House committee investigating the Capitol riot also issued 6 new subpoenas to people involved in the planning of the rally that preceded the insurrection. In a statement, the committee said, quote, some of the witnesses we subpoenaed today apparently worked to stage the rallies on January 5th and 6th, and some appeared to have had direct communication with the former president regarding the rally at the Ellipse directly preceding the attack on the U.S. Capitol, end quote. Representative Benny Thompson, chair of the committee, said the panel is seeking information from people who were involved in the rally's planning or who witnessed the coordination of these plans. Among those subpoenaed were Max Miller, who was an aide to Trump and is now an Ohio congressional candidate, and Brian Jack, Trump's former political affairs director. Kevin McCarthy hired Jack in March to direct the House Republicans' midterm election efforts. In New York, the state attorney general is seeking to depose Trump early next year as part of her investigation into potential fraud inside the Trump Organization. AG Letitia James requested that Trump answer questions under oath on January 7th in her New York office about his company's business practices, including whether the Trump Organization committed tax fraud in the reported value of certain properties to banks and tax authorities. James's office is considering whether to file a civil lawsuit against the company. Moving on, the FDA authorized Pfizer's COVID-19 booster shots for 16 and 17-year-olds. Rochelle Walensky, director of the CDC, signed off on the move and strongly encouraged all 16 and 17-year-olds who have been vaccinated to get a booster as soon as they're 6 months past their second shot. Nearly 50 million Americans, roughly a quarter of those who are fully vaccinated, have already gotten a booster shot. Meanwhile, Senate Republicans voted to roll back Biden's vaccine and testing mandate for large employers with the help of 2 centrist Democrats, Joe Manchin and Jon Tester. The vote, however, is largely symbolic because the House is not expected to take up the measure, and the White House has said that Biden will veto it if it does reach his desk. In September, Biden proposed a vaccination or testing rule that said large private employers must require their workers to be vaccinated against COVID-19 or be tested or face losing their jobs. And finally, inflation hit a 39-year high in November, rising 6.8% from a year ago, making it the 6th straight month in which inflation topped 5%. Joe Manchin, meanwhile, said his concerns about inflation outweigh the benefits of Biden's Build Back Better package, which focuses on reducing the costs for childcare and healthcare and fighting climate change. A report from the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office showed that if the temporary benefit programs in the bill were made permanent, the bill would add $3 trillion to the deficit over 10 years, more than double its 10-year cost. The White House disputed the CBO report, arguing that over the long term, the bill would boost worker productivity and reduce inflation, and that Biden would only support expanding programs if they were fully paid for. Republicans, however, urged Manchin to kill the bill in the 50-50 Senate, pointing to the 6.8% annual gain in the Consumer Price Index. That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website. And as always, visit whatthefjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Amditas.